Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today it's printing day and I'm really excited because I love printing and the printing process is so satisfying, and also the color mixing process and all of that. I want to talk about the inks I use. I want to talk about how I mix the color I'm going to use. Color mixing is the best part. No, it's not the best part. Carving is actually pretty nice. I don't know, I just love printmaking and everything is just so exciting. Like every part of the process feels like every time I do it, it feels like I'm doing it for the first time, and it's very exciting. And yeah, I just, I think, I just freaking love these techniques and they are very, very nice to do. So you can tell I really love this. But yeah, let's get on to printing and color mixing and everything like that. Oh, also cutting paper because that's freaking satisfying. Yeah. Hey there! Today is the first day of the printing slash paper cutting stage. I have a few sheets of paper to cut. I'm hoping to be able to print at least half of these today after cutting them. I'm not sure. I've been underestimating the time it takes every single day ever since I started this, so that's why the videos were late. The paper is a little bit damaged. Oh, there you can see that. It hurts me to see paper this good be like this, but I don't have a proper way to store it, so this has a tendency to happen. I buy these in 70 by 100 centimeters, and that's way too big for someone who doesn't have proper storage. The reason why I wanted to show you the cutting paper process was because of the sound. The sound of cutting paper, especially this kind of paper, is amazing. Just listen to this. Did you get that? The feeling of cutting this paper is amazing. And I don't think there's anything like cutting paper. I don't like to cut the big sheets of paper because they are a little bit troublesome and they don't fit properly on any kind of table because they're huge. I have to put cardboard on the floor and cut them on the floor. But after I cut them into more manageable chunks, I can do it like this. And it is amazing to do. I don't use X-Acto knives or anything like that to cut the paper because I really enjoyed the torn edges kind of look. When you are making most kinds of art, usually the paper is just a surface to accept a painting or a drawing. But in the case of printmaking, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a printmaker, I think the paper takes a more important role in the sense that the paper is part of the piece, and choosing the paper is an extremely important part of the process. When you print with a block, if you are printing them Western style with a lot of pressure and with oil inks and all of that, the paper usually has to be a little bit stronger than the Japanese version, and you get the texture of every single groove in the block. So the thickness of the paper you use and the pressure you use will dictate how much you can see those grooves. And this is even more apparent in etching. When you are printing with zinc plates or with copper plates, you can print what we call a blind print. I'm not sure if that's how you call it in English, but in Portuguese you call it gravura cega. But basically you just print a plate, and when you do that, not only the paper is the main focus, but the paper is the only information you get about the piece. Because basically what you are doing when you print a copper or a zinc plate on their own without ink, what you are doing is molding and shaping the paper to take the shape of the plate. So that ends up meaning that the paper becomes the main focus instead of being a secondary thing. I believe that even in Japanese prints, like the Great Wave, for instance, the most well-known Japanese print of all time, and they have a very different process from the Western style prints, because you use different types of ink. You don't use a press, you use a button. You don't use oily inks, you use water-based inks. So the whole process is fairly different, and I think the paper is just as important in Japanese prints as it is in Western prints. You can tell that by the type of paper they use. Western style prints use extremely thick paper, usually with a fairly high cotton percentage, if possible. If not, you can obviously print, especially relief prints, you can print them fairly successfully on non-cotton paper. I usually use cellulose paper when I want colored paper. I still look for very high quality paper. If you know me, you know I love paper. When I'm printing or cutting paper or thinking about what I'm going to make next in terms of prints, I always think about the paper with extreme care. I have to confess, in terms of printmaking, I think more about the paper than about the inks. So when I think about the paper, I have to think about how it will impact the white of the print. So if I am printing with black ink, I need to know, do I want this print to look softer or do I want this print to look harsher? And if I want it to look very soft, I will opt for an ivory paper. And usually, if I want that very soft texture, I will go for a thicker paper. When you use ivory paper with black ink, it feels so much softer, especially if you have thin lines. If you have thicker lines and you also want that very dreamy and soft look, I would say to go for a very dark brown or sepia and still use the ivory paper. Now, I could talk about paper all day, but we'll still have to print, and I have cut all the paper I had to cut. So let's go on to color mixing and talk a little bit more about inks. The inks I use are by Charbonnel, and usually the way I mix black ink, or I've done that for the past few months, is I bought a tin of black ink. This feels drier while using than the other colors because it is a super pigmented black, way more pigmented than any other color this brand makes. And they have like 6 different blacks. So I bought the most pigmented one, and usually I mix it with a little bit of Prussian blue, a little bit of transparent medium, and I usually mix it with a tiny bit of oil. I store the rest of the ink in this tiny tin. And right now, this mix I have in here has too much oil. So what I'm going to do is make my usual mix, and instead of adding oil, I'm going to be adding this. Now I'm going to be using just a tiny spatula. And by contrast, I'm going to be using a massive brayer. This brayer is a beast. It is my newest investment. It hurts to buy it, but I wanted to buy one of these for so long. It is by a Spanish brand called Reg or Reg, I don't know how to say it. And it is absolutely massive. It has 6 centimeters of diameter and it is 25 centimeters long. And to use such a long brayer, if you are using a lighter one, this is extremely heavy by the way. If you use a lighter one, you run the risk of not having a surface stable enough to ink the block, because you have to use your body weight. And with these heavy ones, you don't. So in that sense, it's way better for my workspace that is a little bit janky, and I prefer to invest in a good brayer that will last me years and years and years than to invest in a new desk when this one is perfectly good. Always clean the glass before using it. I use a little bit of rubbing alcohol because it is the solvent this ink uses. I'm going to be using the corner that is the furthest away from me, but I'm going to add a little bit of Prussian blue. I hope it is a good consistency there. So now I'm going to add a little bit of the transparent medium. We don't need much. We don't want this to be a transparent ink. We just want it to get a little bit of a better consistency. I could be warming it up, but because we are going to use green later on, I'm going to be using a tiny bit of blue to help make it a little bit more harmonious. Okay, can you see how dry it looks? It's not actually dry, it's just so pigmented it looks dry. See? I don't know if you can see anything. I'm just going to be adding like a dollop of it. Maybe I should mix more. Maybe like this. It is a massive brayer, so I should be mixing quite a bit of ink. Just scared of mixing too much, you know? I'm just doing my own thing, so it's not a very big deal to me if the ink is not exactly the same on every print. Quite frankly, if it was exactly the same on every print, I would be extremely sad, because for me, one of the joys of printmaking, aside from playing with ink, one of the joys is having every print be different. So I actually really like when one or two turns out really strange or wonky or poorly printed or anything. I really like those. I don't include them in the series obviously because they are not quote-unquote presentable, but I love them and I keep those for myself because I really like them. And I actually think this looks really nice, and I don't think I need to add anything from that tiny box. Oh man, it is so heavy. I haven't used this yet, it is new, I only washed it. It is really hard to hold this with one hand, but I'm scared of smashing it into the glass. That's how heavy it is. You should always place your brayers with the rubber up. Okay, so let's grab some ink and ink the block. These pieces of brass, I have no idea of their name in English, but in printmaking they are an extension of your hands. All of this is ink from my past prints, because as you can see I already have black ink here, and I'm going to get the good paper dirty if I don't use these. So scared. I love printing, but I'm always so scared of messing it up right at the ends. It is a workout. Okay, let's see how it looks like. Did get the parchment paper. I don't know if you can even see it, but it did get the parchment paper a little bit dirty. Basically, I need more pressure. My guess is, by looking at the back, I don't think the middle printed properly. Probably by using this cardboard. Yeah. Can you see? The middle didn't print well. Okay. So I really like how this is turning out, but it is not printing properly, and I'm going to switch the base. Okay, here's a different base. Hopefully this will work out better. Let's see how it goes. Maybe I need more ink. It's still not printing great, and I don't know why. So maybe it is the press. It is very old, and I know it is not perfectly straight, but I thought the middle was actually going to press more than the outside. I'm very... Let's see what I can do. Frankly, I don't know what to change. I've chosen good paper that I've used before. I'm using linoleum, which is okay. I'm using a press that, even if it is not extremely even, it usually prints pretty well. Never had issues with it, but it may be the press. So let's try again. I'm going to print this by hand, and let's see how it goes. I don't like to print these line work heavy ones by hand, because I feel like the lines get smudged easier, and I have a pretty bad tendency to miss spots. Let's see how I did. Oh yeah, pretty bad as well. I think I need to sleep on this. I think it may be the paper, because this may sound odd, but sometimes you need to have a little bit of moisture in the paper so that it can take the ink a little bit better. Sometimes that helps, but as you saw, I know it's not the press because I'm not being able to print it either. I'm going to leave this for a little bit. I'm going to clean my hands and come back, because once in a while you need to clean your hands in the middle of the session so you don't get everything with ink. Hello! Today is day 2. Yesterday I got way too frustrated and I couldn't print properly. I don't know what happened. I tried troubleshooting, as you probably saw, and I still have some felt. It's exactly the same kind I used for the felt in the press. I just cut the size I needed, and that's what I'm going to do again today, and I hope that allows for extra pressure. I just need to line things up properly and then I can cut it with an X-Acto knife. And in theory, this should work decently. It is industrial felt. It's not synthetic, I think, but it is pretty thick. I think it is 4 millimeters thick, maybe 5. I hope this blade is sharp enough, but let's see. It should be sharp enough. Okay, so I have 2 pieces of felt now. Hope that the felt will help, because it looked like a pressure issue. Hopefully this time is the ink's fault, because if it is the ink, I can correct it. I think this is better. The back of the paper looks better. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere. Let me bring you a little bit closer. Okay, so here you can see this is the last proof I took. It looks way better than it was looking. Sorry for the shaky handheld, but it has to be handheld for now. But it printed way better. Even this part that was not printing well yesterday, it still isn't perfect, but it is way better in comparison to these areas that were printing very well. Yeah, let's keep printing. I'm going to put you in time-lapse mode while I try to troubleshoot this further. And then let's see if we can actually print the series. I may need to cut more paper though. So yeah, let's go. Okay, can you see that texture? I'm going to try something that may be a little bit risky, but I'm going to humidify one of the sheets of paper and see if this prints better. Because I have enough ink and I think I have enough pressure. I think I even have too much ink, that's why it has this texture instead of laying flat on the block. I'm scared to keep going. I feel like I'm just wasting paper. The paper feels more malleable and easier to handle, so this may be a good way to go. And I'm feeling a little bit more confident after handling it, even though I have my hands fairly dirty so I can't actually touch it. I feel like I'm going to need to either reduce the print run by a lot or cut a whole lot of paper. I don't feel like doing either. Okay. I think this is going in a good direction. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes! Okay. Damn, okay. It worked. It has the texture. It has decently even printing. There's still an area with more pressure than the rest, but I think that's to be expected from an old press. I need to put the rest of the paper in some sort of improvised humidifier. Also, I forgot to tell you, I'm going to do a very tiny adjustment, because in this print I just noticed, because it's the first time it got properly printed, I need to correct the patch a little bit. I just need to do a very tiny correction, just so the patch blends in a little bit better. I needed to make the line very slightly thinner. since the paper is slightly wet, I don't want it to catch these bits of ink. Keeping the paper slightly damp sometimes is just what you need, because it will pick up ink better. And you will need less pressure if you have slightly damp paper. But I was extremely nervous to do that because, well, this ink is water soluble and you don't want the ink to get runny. So, oh yeah, I just need a bit less ink over there. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I needed. Let me show you actually how this looks. Can you see? This is what I wanted from the start. I'm so happy. And here you can see there's still a slight texture of... So yeah, I'm actually really excited for this. Okay, so I can now do a proper time lapse of me printing the rest of the paper that I have cut, because now I don't need to troubleshoot anymore. I just need to adjust a little bit the positioning of the paper, but that's minor troubleshooting. Hey there! So today is something like the third day or something like that. I'm not sure anymore. I think it is the third day though. I'm a bit confused about that. I've been trying to troubleshoot the print. I finally figured it out, I think a minute ago for you. A few days ago for me. Since I finally figured out what was happening and managed to correct that, now that I'm being able to print properly, I need to cut more paper because I wasted a bit of paper troubleshooting, and I need to cut slightly bigger sheets of paper. I don't think it makes much sense to have the print as tight in terms of space on the page. I think this print needs at least a centimeter around to breathe, instead of having a few millimeters on top, a few millimeters on the bottom, and a few millimeters on the other side or whatever. And because of that, I think I'm going to cut paper that is 22 by 30 or something like that. Let's finally get on to printing the final version. Okay, so I don't know if you can see me, but let's print again. I feel like printing is always a game of how fast can you get your hands dirty. Okay, I have the green base, I have the thing, and the things, and let's try and print again. Hopefully this time will go good, so that we can go on into printing the actual print run. But hey, at least it looks like it printed everything. The paper was too wet, but it did have enough ink and enough pressure. We just had too much water on the paper. Hello! So today it's, I don't know, maybe the 4th day or 6th day? I have no idea right now. But yeah, today I only have 4 more sheets of paper to print. Hopefully it will be fairly quick. They are already damp enough, just on the right spot of dampness. That's kind of strange to say, but whatever. That means I will not need to mix more black ink. I will only need to mix the green, and that's something I'm extremely happy to be able to do. I'm a bit scared of ruining the already hard to print, but we have to test it, right? And I have a few, you know, leftover from troubleshooting that I can test. What else? Yeah, I think I'm going to switch you into time-lapse mode just for the last 4 prints, and then let's go. Hello there, today is the day something of this process. Today I have to apologize for the reflection on the glass, but we are talking about color mixing, so we need the glass. I'm going to be using Aqua Wash Charbonnel ink the same way I did for the black part of this print. The big difference is I'm going to be using transparent medium, deep yellow, and Prussian blue, which is the same blue I used to soften the black a little bit. The yellow is PY83 in terms of pigment. The blue is Prussian blue, so PB27. Usually I will keep the little bits that are like leftover paper from prints. When I do this, I keep the ones that I'm using for a current print outside. And since I have very few inks and the range isn't even that big, I usually don't identify them. So these ones were from Keep Swimming prints. You know, if I am using different paper, I will use the exact same paper for these color tests. This is also Fabriano Rosaspina, but it is the ivory thing and it is way thicker because these were leftovers from another print that I had to use 285 grams and now I'm using the 220. So this may not sound like a big difference, but in printmaking it is a big difference. The first thing I want to do is put quite a bit of yellow because I know I don't want this green to be leaning too blue. I usually use a spatula like this to test out the color. So basically I'm going to show you just what the yellow looks like on paper and then what the blue looks like on paper. I also always keep a rag near me so that I can clean either the spatula or something else if I get ink on things. As you can see, this is the perfect egg yolk yellow. If you are not sure what colors you want, this is the best way to make sure you know what you are using. Can you see how dark it is? Every time I use Prussian blue by itself for linocut prints, I usually add a little bit of transparent medium just because it is so dark you can't even see its transparency. And Prussian blue is so pretty and I just feel a bit sad whenever I see it used so dark you can't understand how transparent and how beautiful it is. I actually really like this green. I think I want to make it a tiny bit more transparent and I want to make a larger amount. So I'm going to mix this with more of the yellow and see how much blue I need to add to go back to that tone. Please keep in mind that when you are mixing these colors, you have to take the same considerations you take with watercolor or any other medium about the tinting strength of different pigments. So in this case, the blue will always be stronger because it is Prussian blue. I love the muted greens this combination of blue and yellow creates. But yeah, let's add the one that looks gross, meaning transparent medium. It looks so gross. Oh well. The transparent medium is my most used ink or thing in color mixing, simply because I love transparent colors. And many people, when doing linocut prints, even when doing reduction prints, take a lot of advantage of opaque colors because you can layer lighter colors on top of darker colors. But I really like how cool it looks when you can see the layering thing. So when everything is transparent, you can see so much better all the layers. And I like that. And many people don't like that because it's like watercolor. But I love watercolor, so I love that. This is looking so messy, but it's exactly how it looks even if I'm not recording, so. I'm going to separate a tiny portion to mix with oil, a little bit too much oil, because I want to try and make my own stamp pad. This is hard to open because it has that children. Basically, I can never open it because I'm a child. I always feel like this was made to prevent me from opening the oil. I think I did it. Yeah, I finally managed to open the oil. Hey, I usually have to ask my mom to open the oil. So yeah, I usually use a different spatula to take some oil out because you don't want to contaminate your oil with color. I added a whole lot of oil and I have the ink pad drying in the sun. I did wash it with soap and water, so in theory I should not have any leftover cheap ink. I'm back many hours later. I kept everything in this tin. This one is the one that had too much oil on purpose. I don't love how it looks. It bleeds a little bit in the paper. Also, the cheap ink pad I talked about is finally dry, so it's quite runny. I feel like it could be yellowish, more yellowish, because I think it is lacking the light that these two had. These two felt almost like they were, you know, more transparent than this because they were a little bit more yellowish and warmer, and I think that is what I'm going to do. Let me just add a tiny bit of yellow next to it. I think this should be enough. I know it doesn't look like much, but we are just trying to shift it a little bit warmer. But you can see how much warmer it is. It suddenly looks a lot more alive. This one was looking a little bit dull. I'm going to try and saturate the ink pad. This is an experiment. This is the first time I'm doing it, but it seems to be working. Hey! First thing, it worked, and I'm very happy because it worked really nicely. Second thing, too much ink. Third thing, too much oil. Okay, so I have good news and bad news, mostly for myself. The good news are that these stamps work pretty well, and I'm actually really happy with the way the ink pad is working, but it doesn't look very good here. I think the color needs to be softer. I think it needs less oil, and I think it needs to be more transparent. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to sleep on the matter. So, tomorrow morning I'll see what I want to do about it. Hey there! Today is day something of this whole thing. It has been a few days since the last time I talked to you, and after thinking about it a lot, trying to understand whether it makes sense or not, I ended up deciding to scrap the green leaves. It makes no sense to keep them because they only weigh down the print. It makes it look top heavy, and I don't think it makes sense in this case. I also think that since the black and white block already was so detailed, I don't think in this case it makes sense to try to emphasize even more the leaves because they already have a pretty important role without the color. So I'm not going to add the green leaves now, but I may do a small limited print run soon or in a few months, most probably, to give you the option to choose whether you want either leaves, like colored leaves, or black and white print. But that will be a pretty limited run, probably just 2 or 3 prints of green leaves and different colored leaves, and that's it. But yeah, I really wanted this to work. I don't think it does. I may find a way so that I can do those limited prints, but right now I don't think it works very well. Thank you very much for sticking around for this long. I know the video is huge. I tried to make it shorter. I can't make it shorter because I just can't shut up while recording. If you are interested in this print, there will be a link down below for my Gumroad where you can pre-order for now the print, and then in about a month from now, no, not a month, like 2 weeks or 3 from now, it will go from pre-order to regular order. If you are pre-ordering, there is a discount code, but it is in the product description, because if you are pre-ordering this, I want to give you a little bit of a discount as kind of, you know, as a thank you for pre-ordering it, for giving me the opportunity to work on the next few prints. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe if you want to see more from me. So yeah, bye!